All rise. Court is again in session. The Honorable Valerie Pegg presiding. This is the trial of the people versus Jesus of Nazareth. You may be seated. Are all parties ready?
Attorney for the prosecution is ready.
Defense attorney is ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, the trial, Jesus of Nazareth, is about to begin. You are the jury. You are the officers of the court, and as such, each of you have a vital part to play in this trial. No one here is a mere spectator. As a member of your jury, you will pay close attention to everything that's said. Weigh the evidence for and against Jesus of Nazareth, and pronounce the final verdict. You will have an awesome responsibility. You will decide whether Jesus of Nazareth is to live or to die. And before we begin the trial, the jurors will be sworn in. Please stand. Now, jury, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that we will live and truly try the case, the people versus Jesus of Nazareth, and a true verdict rendered according to the evidence and the law? So help you God. Answer, I do. I do. You may be seated. Prosecutor, you can call your first witness.
I call John Zebedee to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, may it please the court. Please state your full name and address.
John Zebedee, 314 Gamaliel Street, Capernaum, Galilee.
Were you or were you not one of the followers of Jesus of Nazareth?
I was.
How many of you were there?
Well, many people followed Jesus from place to place, but of his closest disciples there were 12.
Tell us, how did the 12 of you get along? Did you all work well together?
Yes, we did. We were like brothers. Oh, there were times when we argued with each other, but for the most part, the love and friendship we enjoyed with Jesus was great.
A moment ago, Mr. Zebedee, you testified that there were 12 of you. How many are there now?
11.
So you lost one. What happened to him?
You know perfectly well what happened to him. I don't want to talk about it.
You must answer the question.
His name was Judas.
Tell the court what happened.
He betrayed our Lord. That's what he did. He sold out to the chief priest. He led them to the Lord at the right time so they could arrest him without the crowd interfering. 30 pieces of silver he got to betray him. Judas always was a thief. I never did trust him. Finally, being the coward he was, he went out and he killed himself.
Take it easy. Calm down. So your fellowship was full of love and concern for one another?
Well, I said there were some exceptions.
Yes, there were, weren't there?
Oh, here, sorry.
Would you please mark this as evidence? According to the 13th chapter of your book, Mr. Zebedee, all this occurred the night before your master was crucified. Is this true?
Yes, it's true.
And what were you doing?
We were celebrating the Passover together.
In that fellowship of love, no doubt, during the meal, he revealed to all of you that one of your group was going to betray him, correct?
Yes.
Did anyone know who it was?
Jesus knew, and the betrayer himself.
Anyone else?
Yes, I knew. Jesus told me himself.
And why did he tell you?
Why? I don't know why. Maybe because I asked him.
I have a statement here from one of your colleagues, I believe his name is Matthew, who said everyone was saying, is it I? Why? Why did he tell you?
I don't know why he told me.
You don't know? Tell me, weren't you his closest disciple?
I suppose maybe that is true. My brother Peter and James and myself. I suppose we were the closest.
You are being a bit modest here, John. Don't you call yourself in your book the disciple whom Jesus loved?
Yes, I do.
Well, I see. This being true, why do you suppose that Jesus told you, and you alone, that Judas was going to betray him?
I don't know why he told me.
I think you do. You have been boasting about this fellowship of love and closeness in your group, but now you say that you don't know why Jesus told you that Judas was going to betray him. I think it was because you wanted to do something with all that love and fellowship that you are so proud of. I suggest he told you about Judas because he wanted you to help your brother.
Objection! The prosecutor is badgering the witness.
Objection overruled. If you knew that Judas was going to betray Jesus, why didn't you do something about it?
What could I have done?
You could have gone out with him and talked with him. You could have gotten him to give up. You might have saved his life. You and you alone could have helped Judas. But what did you do about it?
I did nothing, but there was a lot going on. We were celebrating the Passover together.
So you say that you were enjoying the meal, but you did nothing to stop your brother Judas. You were feeling so comfortable with this loving little fellowship of disciples that you were simply enjoying yourself so much you couldn't find time to help. Is that right?
You must answer the question.
Well, speak up, Mr. Zebedee. Is that right?
I guess maybe you're right.
And you accused Judas of being a betrayer and a thief. Do you think that you are any better? You who did nothing to help your brother? Who is the betrayer here?
You must answer the question.
What do you have to say?
I failed him.
You surely did. What kind of nonsense is this? You are his closest disciple, yet even you failed him. You still want to claim that he's the Messiah? The one who brings love and fellowship?
Yes, he is. He's the Son of God who came into this world to suffer and die for sinners like me, and to bring peace and fellowship on earth. My sins and my failure doesn't change who he is.
I suggest that this is all one big fraud. If it is true, why didn't you help your brother? Why did you let Judas die?
No, you don't understand. It is true. I let my brother down.
No further questions.
Your Honor, Honorable Counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, may it please the court. Mr. Zebedee, the prosecutor is trying to get the jury to believe that Jesus was a fraud because you, as one of his closest disciples, failed to help Judas. Do you agree with this assessment?
No, not at all. I can see how she may feel this way, but she is all wrong.
All wrong? Well, how so?
If anybody is a fraud, it is me, not Jesus. I failed him, or anyone else in this courtroom for that matter.
What do you mean by that?
Can't you see? Jesus doesn't tell us just to love people. Anyone can say that. That is like telling a hunchback to stand up straight. He would if he could, but telling him to stand up straight doesn't give him the power to do so.
And Jesus is different?
Yes, very different.
How is he different, Mr. Zebedee?
Jesus didn't tell us simply how to treat each other. Jesus taught us how to love and how to care for one another in the stories and the parables that he told.
Is that all?
No. Everywhere that we went, he reached out to people. He healed and cared for people. He cared for people and they didn't even know it. Jesus loved people and he showed us how he loved people by the way he treated them.
It sounds as if Jesus was a great teacher. What else made him so special?
There were many, many things that made Jesus special.
Do you remember any specific examples of that?
I could give many examples, but the one that comes to mind most is the night that Judas betrayed him. Jesus had us all sit down and he washed our feet. Jesus washed our feet and he told us that we must do this to each other. That is, we must be servants to one another.
It seems that Jesus was a great teacher. What else about him made him so special?
It is hard to explain, but when we were with Jesus, there was a power and peace that filled our hearts. There were times that we disagreed with each other, but we truly loved each other with a very special kind of love. It was that power of inner peace and love that held us together like brothers.
Anything else, Mr. Zebedee?
Jesus didn't always like the way we treated each other. We didn't always treat each other the way that he wanted us to. There were times we fought and argued with each other, were jealous towards each other. Every time we failed each other, just like I failed Judas at a critical time in his life, Jesus was there to forgive us and teach us to forgive one another. We failed Jesus many times, but he never failed us.
Thank you, Mr. Zebedee. No further questions.
You may step down. Mrs. Prosecutor, closing arguments?
Your Honor, honorable counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, may it please the court. It is obvious from what our witness has just told us this evening that Jesus and his followers are nothing but a bunch of hypocrites. Even John, the disciple whom Jesus loved, wouldn't lift a finger to help his brother Judas. They're all that way. They talk about love. They talk about fellowship. But they criticize, they gossip, they hurt one another. If they treat each other like that, how do you think they will treat outsiders? They talk about one thing and live another. They are nothing but a bunch of hypocrites, frauds. On the other hand, I don't blame John for not getting involved with Judas. John was the smart one. Jesus is the crazy one. He's the one to blame for trying to get John and all the others to believe this garbage about loving your neighbor as yourself. Jesus is a fraud. Jesus is a dangerous fraud. He will promise you fellowship. He will promise you life. And he will give you a cross instead. Either we must crucify him or be crucified. I say crucify him.
Your Honor, honorable counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, may it please the court. What then shall we do with Jesus from Nazareth? He comes to us claiming to be the very Son of God. He comes to us as one who claims to usher in the kingdom of God right here on earth. He comes to us claiming to give us power to truly love one another. Either this is true or Jesus is crazy. This witness, by his own admission, failed Jesus because he didn't love and care for his brother Judas. But that does not make Jesus wrong. But does that make Jesus wrong? Does that make Jesus a fraud, as the prosecutor claims? It shows that John is a sinner. But it says nothing about who Jesus is. Jesus is not a fraud. Jesus went to the cross willingly to die for you and me so that we might have life and be filled with love. And he did that. Why? He did that because he loved John, who failed him. He did that because he loved Judas, who betrayed him. He did that because he loves you and he loves me. Jesus is no fraud. We may be, but Jesus isn't. Think about Jesus for a moment. Think about the love that he has for you. I ask for you to find Jesus of Nazareth not guilty. Set him free so that he can truly love you, so that you and I can truly love one another.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this trial is not yet concluded. You have heard the testimony of one witness. This court will reconvene next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. to consider the testimony of Mary Magdalene. During the intervening days, you are charged to consider carefully the testimony which you have heard. You should discuss it among yourselves and consider the veracity of the witness. Consider the arguments of the counsel. Determine the truth or the falsity of what they said. And lastly, consider the implications of what you have heard for yourself and all mankind. Madam Bailiff, the court will now be in recess.
All rise. Court will be in recess.